Today I'm not preaching on I'm preaching on the passages for today, but I'm not using the poetry and reflections from Tell Me Something Good, and I hope you'll look at that on your own. Because this is the tile floor of a Byzantine church from about the year 480, near the town of Capernaum, where Jesus began his ministry on the Sea of Galilee. And the loaves of bread and fish set in tile a few hundred years after Jesus. Today's passage is the central miracle of Jesus in Mark, the feeding of the 5,000. And rather than focus on one passage today, I'd like to look at how this fits in the narrative of the Bible and its interpretation of history. Genesis begins with the creation that is abundant. The poetry celebrates how much God provides in creation, telling us to be co-creators in the image of God, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. The longest creation psalm, 104, spends 23 verses celebrating the variety and fullness of God's creation that guarantees fruitfulness and abundance to feed everybody in God's world, because God is reliable. And beginning with abundance, Genesis ends with scarcity and fear. In Genesis 47, Pharaoh has a nightmare that there won't be enough to go around during a famine. And rather than share the grain that the people have harvested over 7 years, because of his greed and fear and power, he decides he must have it all. And like all the pharaohs down to today, Pharaoh is afraid and ruthless. And during the famine, when people are starving, he takes advantage of them in economic transactions, demanding collateral for the grain he has monopolized. In the first year, they give all their money to Pharaoh for food. In year 2, they give all their livestock, so no more milk or meat. In year 3, they give all their land to Pharaoh for food. And in the 4th year, they give all they have left, themselves, as slaves to Pharaoh. This is how the people of Israel become slaves in Egypt, and it's all there in chapter 47 of Genesis. And Exodus begins with the production and consumption system of scarcity. Quotas or production are demanded of the slave laborers. And the production-consumption system is the way of civilization we see today, whether your quota is so many widgets an hour, or so many people a day for a concentration camp, or so many weapons a day. The slaves who do the work, like society's slaves today, don't get the benefits of their labor. And the people cry out in their misery. And God sees, God hears, God acts out of love and compassion. God works in partnership with Moses and the people to free them from their system of bondage. God doesn't work alone. God works in partnership with us. And God brings liberation and salvation to the people who enter the wilderness as far away from the production, consumption, repression systems of Pharaoh as you can get. God gives them rules for their community, and God provides for them manna, their daily bread. There's enough bread for everyone, and the bread spoils if you try to store more than your share for future days. If you fear scarcity while living in God's abundance, what you try to monopolize and hoard and keep and store up turns to worms and rots before your eyes. That's the story of the Bible, and it's our story. It's how we are torn between having faith in God's abundance and provision that leads to neighborhoods of common care, joyful gratitude, care for the least of these, and also those who look at the other way like the people in the wilderness who had all they needed and asked to go back to the country of Egypt. We are drawn by the lure of Pharaoh. We fear scarcity. We trust power systems more than God, seeking to possess property and accumulate wealth and covet what others have. And that's why thou shalt not covet is so important in God's 10 commandments for community, because coveting what others have, fearing scarcity for us, leads to breaking the other commandments of lying, cheating, stealing, killing. People in the Bible, people in the history of civilization, our very lives are pulled in two directions: trusting God's way or securing our selfish desires in power systems of domination. And theology in the Bible interprets history. And a major theme of that interpretation is the conflict of abundance and scarcity. On one hand, the inexplicable love and provision of God for all creation, no exceptions. And on the other hand, the powerful systems of scarcity that makes us afraid and selfish and anxious and violent and greedy and possibly extinct. The historical Jesus was a Jewish rabbi who was raised in and taught the Torah, the prophets, the writing of the Hebrew Scriptures. But he was also born under Rome's Pharaoh, now who took the name Caesar Augustus. And he chose Augustus because Augustus means the one to be worshipped as the Son of God. And Caesar Augustus proclaimed he brought peace and prosperity to the Roman Empire through victory in war. And Jesus was born under the Jewish king Herod the Great, who served the empire. And Herod the Great built the temple in Jerusalem and the capital city of Sepphoris. And these employed laborers that cost most of the people growing their own food lots of taxes, because money was scarce for all those buildings. And Jesus' public life and his execution was under the rule of a different Caesar, Caesar Tiberius, and a different Herod, Herod Antipas. Herod Antipas was not the king of the Jews like his father. He had 1/4 of the rule. He ruled only in Galilee, where Jesus lived. Which brings us to the bread and fish in the central miracle of Mark's gospel. In Roman-occupied Palestine, in Judah and Galilee, people grew their own food on family or neighborhood farms. The 3 main crops were wheat to make bread, olives for food and oil, and grapes for food and wine. There was abundant food and drink they produced for the people to eat, drink, and use. But the wealthy Romans living in Rome and cities needed their bread and wine to be shipped to their cities, where they grew little but consumed a lot. And Caesar and Herod taxed their farm produce by taking most of what they grew away from them, thus turning their abundance into scarcity. And one bad year of crops plus heavy taxes meant most bread producers went into debt before becoming slaves to work off their debt. Genesis 47, all over again. And Herod Antipas, who ruled 1/4 of his father's kingdom, was never named a king, although he tried to get Rome to make him a king of the Jews all his life. This was the Herod who beheaded John the Baptist when John began to organize his followers. And a few years before Jesus' public ministry in the 20s CE, Herod moved his capital from Sepphoris to the lake. He named his new capital Tiberias to honor Caesar Tiberius. And he changed the name of the sea from the Sea of Galilee, named for its location, to the Sea of Tiberias to please the emperor. Imagine a politician just one day renaming a body of water for political gain. As biblical historian Dom Crossan points out, moving a capital upsets everything. You have to get money to build a new city. You move from the breezy hillsides of Sepphoris to mosquito-infested Tiberias. And what do your wealthy courtiers do with all their villas in Sepphoris? How do you sell a used villa? And the land by the lake is available because it was a cemetery. How do you convince Jews to live over an unclean cemetery? You know, billboards and advertising and social media posts might help. Well, coins in the Roman Empire were their billboards, their marketing. Coins said Caesar Augustus, son of God, right on them. And this is the coin that Herod distributed for the foundation of Tiberias. On one side is a reed growing in the lake. John the Baptist uses this image for Herod to sarcastically refer to Herod as a reed shaken by the wind. And the name around Herod's name is Tetrarch. Tetrarch meaning ruling 1/4. And on the other side is the name of Caesar Tiberius with a wreath. And all Roman emperors wore a wreath to symbolize their absolute authority, their supreme victory in war, and their divine authority from God. And as the land growing bread had been taken over and commercialized for profit in Rome, now Antipas moves to the lake to commercialize fishing. And the lake had been open to anyone who wanted to fish, to feed their own family or neighbor. And now Herod begins to tax fishing and the fish. The fish were salted and shipped to Rome to feed those who hadn't caught it. And taxes on fish were 60%, and people who couldn't afford to grow bread anymore now couldn't afford to fish. And so Jesus begins his ministry in Capernaum by what he still calls the Sea of Galilee, on the opposite side of the new capital, Tiberias. And he calls poor fishermen from a dying industry who left that life that once was abundant with fish, but now is the scarcity of empire. And Jesus spends a lot of time talking about farming, bread, wealthy, distant landowners, vineyards, slaves who do the labor and don't benefit from their work. And the two things that Rome and Herod had commercialized, bread and fish. Bread and fish. I wonder, could Pharaoh to Caesar, everything in between, everything since, have anything to do with our passage from Mark 6? I don't know. Maybe this long introduction has been a waste of time. Or maybe you might hear something new today. Come and see. Right after the disciples were sent as apostles to homes and villages, 2 by 2, and right after Herod beheads John the Baptist, then the apostles gathered around Jesus and told him all they had done and taught. And he said to them, "Come away to a deserted place all by yourselves and rest a while." For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in the boat to a deserted place by themselves. In response to all the new experiences and stress of grief, Jesus recognizes their need to get away, to recharge. Richard Rohr's ministry is called the Center for Action and Contemplation. It's both what we do and what we contemplate. Time with God and time working in partnership with God to transform the world. Now many saw them going and recognized them, and they hurried there on foot from all the towns and arrived ahead of them. And as he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. Notice Jesus, bone tired or not, has compassion on the crowd. They are like sheep without a shepherd to care for them, to tend for their needs. So he teaches them. And when it grew late, his disciples came to him and said, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is now very late. Send them away so they may go into the surrounding country and villages and buy something for themselves to eat." Disciples want the people to take care of their own needs, to walk far to different villages to buy their own bread. I don't think it's quite like saying 1 million Americans need to leave 14 countries immediately, but we can't help you, you're on your own. I think the disciples don't see any other way. They focus on their scarcity and the people's great need. But Jesus answered them, "You give them something to eat." Wow. You give them something to eat. Don't send them away. Don't give an explanation for their suffering. You do something. You give them something to eat. You act to meet their needs. And they said to him, "Are we to go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give it to them to eat?" And he said, "How many loaves have you? Go and see." The disciples focus on their scarcity. They have no money. They can't spend 9 months' wages to buy bread for everyone. And there aren't many drive-through diners with 1,000 loaves of bread nearby. But Jesus focuses on abundance, not scarcity. How many loaves do you have? Go and see. Don't tell me what you can't do. Go and look what you can do. And when they had found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish, 5 baked loaves of bread, 2 salted fish. How do you think they said that to Jesus? Only 5 and 2? Look how little we have. This is worse than we thought. Then he ordered them to get all the people to sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and of 50s. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want for anything. You make me lie down in green pastures. You prepare a table before me." And Jesus is the community organizer, breaking them up into groups of hundreds and 50s. And taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and blessed and broke the loaves and gave them to his disciples to set before the people, and he divided the 2 fish among them all. Wow. The actions of taking the bread, the Lord's Supper, 4 actions: taken, blessed, broken, given. The 4 actions of our sacrament of food for all at table where all are welcome. We say at every communion. Jesus took the bread, and he blessed the bread, and he broke the bread, and he gave the bread, saying, "Take, eat, do this remembering me." Do this remembering this community that took what they had and offered it to God, and God worked through them to make it enough. And all ate and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of broken pieces and of the fish. And those who had eaten the loaves numbered 5,000 men. That's 5,000 men, maybe a lot of women and children too. Jesus shows us the church. It's community organizing in partnership with God. Without us, God won't. And without God, we can't. That's the message of Jesus. But in partnership with God and with each other, in seeking to live into the kingdom of God, the vision of God for our lives and our world, in the face of the power of Pharaoh and Caesar and civilization to defeat our efforts, when we offer what we have to be used by God and shared with others, what we have is enough. One example might be what is literally called loaves and fishes. The name of the community partnership that provides evening meals 7 nights a week in Colombia. They are helping hungry people with what they have, and it's a great ministry. It's one thing to feed someone who's hungry. It's another to ask how we can transform the systems of society so no one is hungry. And you can't make a difference alone. It takes organizing into 50s and hundreds, like this list of churches and all their members, that makes the loaves and fishes possible. And as our other text for today from Ephesians reads, "Now to him who by the power at work within us is able to accomplish abundantly far more than all we can ask or imagine, to him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus to all generations forever and ever." To God who is at work within us to accomplish abundantly far more than all we could ask or imagine. That's a great place to end the sermon. Maybe I should, but Mark doesn't end the story there. In the next chapter, Jesus goes across the Sea of Galilee to the Gentile Sea of Tiberias side, the pagan Roman side of the lake, and he feeds 4,000 there in a similar way, and 7 baskets are taken up, showing the abundance of the 7-day creation and Sabbath for the whole world. And right after those 2 feedings of both Jews and Gentiles, the disciples get into a boat but forgot to bring bread. Who says Mark doesn't have a sense of irony? All this bread work, and the disciples forget to bring bread. And Jesus cautioned them, saying, "Watch out. Beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and the yeast of Herod." What's that mean, the yeast of Pharisees, the yeast of Herod? I think Jesus is saying when people see Jesus as the bread for the world, the bread of life, the bread from heaven, many will settle for junk food. And the Pharisees thinks it's all about moralisms and purity. Believe the right thing, live the right way, who's in, who's out. Look at all the Christian Pharisees today. And Herod offers the junk food of greed and power. Get all you can, take all you can, do unto others in retaliation for hurting your ego. Beware of those temptations. Quick yeast and junk food tempt us everywhere. And they said to one another, "I guess it's because we said we have no bread." Another adventure in missing the point. The disciples think Jesus is scolding them for having no bread. And becoming aware of it, Jesus said to them, "Why are you talking about having no bread? Do you still not perceive or understand?" Teenagers would be rolling their eyes saying this. Don't you get it? It's about the economy, stupid. You are there for feeding bread and fish in abundance. Now you focus on the scarcity of having no bread. And Jesus continues, are your hearts hardened? Do you have eyes and fail to see? Do you have ears and fail to hear? And do you not remember? When did we hear about a heart hardened before? It was Pharaoh. After each plague, when Pharaoh is tempted to let the people go, his heart is hardened and he changes his mind. Do you not have eyes to see or ears to hear? How often did open eyes and ears to see and hear the good news of the vision of God for the world was Jesus' action? And do you not remember? Whenever you share bread in community, do this remembering me. So when that doesn't work, he tries some concrete questions. When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you collect? And they raised their hands. I know, Jesus. 12, they said. They said to him, 12. And the 7, for the 4,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you collect then? Ooh, call on me, Jesus. They said, 7. Then he said to them, do you still not understand? The whole world is being transformed in my presence. God's abundance is greater than the scarcity of civilization. Don't you get it? I came to give the 12 tribes of Israel and everyone in the 7 days of creation an abundant life here and now. Everywhere Jesus goes, the world is transformed. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleaned, the deaf hear, the hungry are fed, the dead are raised, and the poor are freed from debt. Jesus is inviting us into partnership with God to transform the world. Do you not yet understand?